what are we talking about?
I changed my mind a couple of times. I was thinking about talking about possibly marriage, And I thought, who am I to talk about it? I'm not an expert. That's not what I thought at all. But,
what's your success rate?
Yeah, it's like I can just shut up and listen to you the whole time. Now it's my turn. Loser. Yeah, I start talking to you. Shut up. You've got nothing to say.
What do you know?
Welcome to my world. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But then I was thinking, because we talk about reflection often, what is it?
Yeah, let's do that. Or you're asking me what I reckon reflection is?
I'm asking what's the answer?
What's the answer? Trying to look at things from different perspectives and delve a bit deeper.
Probably should start and then we'll start.
Yeah. Go for it.
I was just filling up my water. I'm most susceptible. Like I hardly ever get sick, but if it goes from pretty hot weather to cools down, my body goes, yes, it's time. It's time. Yeah. For what? You'll see. You'll see. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. Today we're going to be talking about reflecting because it's something that we discuss often. Reflecting is the key to opening all the doors, the internal doors within, and it's key, and most people avoid that. Sorry. So yeah, reflecting is essential. So I thought it's probably high time we talk about reflecting and the understanding you seek from that. So on reflecting on I started mentioning earlier, reflecting on when I was working the longest I'd work for a year, like the most hours I was doing 55 hours a week and long days, sort of 10-hour days and weekends. And so the average 55 would go from 50 to 60. And it was relentless. And I tell you, it was a tough year. So my eyes have always been fine. And I'm not saying this is, who knows, but I'm reflecting on the situation to look at the possibilities. But during this time, I've never worn sunglasses as consistently, whether it's clear glasses or sunglasses. And we worked in 40 plus degree heat in summer. It was a pretty tough summer. And so you're always taking, you take your glasses off, you wipe them, they get dirty, they get sweaty, they get foggy. And after probably about 9 months or so, I noticed my eyes weren't what they were prior. And I was actually talking to a great guy that was a health guy on site. And he said that he believes he had a suspicion that it may be to do with wearing glasses consistently. And he worked in the office more so, and he walked around on site, but he wasn't outside all the time. He was inside. So it was his thesis was, wearing them constantly for 10 hours a day and barely taking off, because the time for lunch and smoko was monitored pretty much. So you had no extra time, which, that's okay. But so I'm reflecting on the whole situation that year. The only thing that I really did different was work far longer hours under different conditions and sweated more, where when I worked for myself at times, if it got too hot, like 37.5 degrees, we'd stop working, where we didn't. We kept working no matter what the heat was. And they looked after us in the sense that you'd have a break here and there, or, you'd find a little bit of shade, or they'd bring you like an isopole thing here and there on a hot day. You might get one or two for the day or so, but it was something. But that's the only thing I can think about that I believe the big difference in my eyes, and that may have been it. And it may not have. Maybe at my age, or the how I was potentially, that could have been the icing on the cake, so to speak. So it's reflecting. Obviously, is considering possibilities and reflecting, and getting a sense of understanding, obviously, from your past. And I think there's another thing with this too. You can project into the future and get a sense of how you feel with, let's say there's a decision coming up, and this is like a I don't think many people really consider this too much. Some do.
Mm-hmm.
But if I wasn't sure of a decision that I'd like to make, or if I was faced with a choice I had to make in the future, what I like to do, and I do tend to do, I like to go with my intuition above all else. So I project a situation going one way, going the other. And then I feel this situation, and then I get a sense of or a feeling of how I feel in that time, in that projected future.
Mm-hmm.
And it might sound crazy, it might sound weird, and I've recommended other people do this in different situations when they have to make big choices. And they come to a decision that they have made peace with before the decision. And then when they go into that choice, and I've done this, like for my son, I recommended when he was potentially considering living in Canberra.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "What do you think I should do?" I said, "Well, you have to work that out." I said, "You can," and I said to him, "I said, you can make it work either way. Like it's you'll grow either way." He was 17. Was thinking about the potential or the possibility of going to school in Canberra. Had caring family there. They were nice. They're nice people, and he was seeking my advice. So instead of saying, "Yeah, no, come back," it's like, no, it's just project yourself into next year, and you're going to school, or so this is obviously last year. This before, well, actually it started last year, and just see yourself working there and making connections there, and possibly going to work there, and what's important to you. And I said, see yourself 3 months down the track in school, see yourself a year. And you might think, well, how can you possibly know? We're so intuitive. We can project scenarios and get a sense of it. We can. It's just a matter of trusting ourselves. And I feel that an obstacle for this is when you have anxiety. This is the catch. I feel if you're suffer from anxiety, then you're struggling to cope in this moment, and you're struggling. I feel I'm not an expert in anything. Once again, and from my experience and understanding, if you have trouble coping in this moment, your projections in the future, or even reflecting into the past, you're going to have trouble seeing it from you could say, an adult's perspective, and that's not being condescending. When a child reflects, or often when people that are caught in their emotions reflect to a past trauma or incident, they tend to fall or get slungshot into the person or that child that's experiencing that pain or the hurt or whatever it is. So then you can't rationalize, you can't get an overview, because all you're just feeling is that reaction. And I feel that's why some people don't want to reflect, because they're reliving the pain. And the goal is to be able to go back into an incident or something that's happened without feeling potential shame or abuse, or you might feel some sense of anger, but it's broadening your view from being the person to seeing the person, seeing, or like where it might be like seeing yourself, to zooming out and see yourself and the other person, then zooming out more to see what was going on potentially in their life, and then trying to get a bigger picture. As it's like looking at a masterpiece potentially, and I like to use that like a masterpiece in a museum or something, because as you zoom out, you become more of a master of your life, and the picture of your story, no matter how it looks, can be, the more you zoom out, the more you see, the more you get a sense of it, the greater your story can become. So it gives you great insight into yourself, and patterns. Patterns are super important, because if we're blaming another, and this is the whole key, if we're blaming another or constantly blaming others for how we're feeling and the patterns we are in, but yet we're meeting different people along the way, we can't blame the other person. So we have to look at our patterns, our triggers, and this is what reflecting does. So if you have anxiety and you're having trouble coping in this moment, your perspectives aren't balanced. People may argue at this point that anxiety is not, it's a condition. Well, I'd argue, well, it's not a stereotype, in a sense that it's not a character that's identified with certain attributes. it's a character that's identified as having certain conditions, and there's a difference in that, because a stereotype gives you, like a Leo, for example, or Pisces, or whatever it is. There are certain stereotypes that offer insight into characteristics, and we're a combination of multiple things, multiple characteristics. So conditions, or spirituality, self-help, self-development, is about breaking through conditions, getting out of autopilot, setting ourselves free from conditioning. If we say, oh, I just have a condition, why be submissive towards that? I never would. You just show certain tendencies. So the idea in my mind is to break through all, and at the very least as many conditions as you possibly can throughout your life. And what's the benefit of that? Well, you can feel more, you can experience more. The less we walk around in fear or victim space, the greater our journey. So it's profound. That's why I often say reflecting is the key to unraveling every door. So if we're not triggered, and even if we have bouts of anxiety from time to time, if someone says to me, oh, what do you think about this? And if I'm busy doing something, I say, oh, I'll sit with that. That's what I often say. And I sit and I get a feel, and I don't go into the fear. I don't go in the head. I just sit. I don't like going to those places, because the mind will entrap you and snare you. It can take you so many different directions. I truly feel that the mind is a magnificent interpreter of heart. So, but to get that, you've got to put your mind aside, like a musician would, a maestro. When they play, they don't think, they just play. And then the mind just facilitates that space for true inspiration to come through, or something beautiful, the artistic side to flow, creativity.
Can I just ask, are you referring to the mind as an ego? Put that aside.
Yeah, I am, but sort of refrain from using that. But yeah, basically that's it, because, it may not be a conscious ego, it may not be. So yeah, it is, but it's also more. It's the mind that have certain belief systems that may not be rooted in an ego, or even obviously rooted in an ego. Certain conditionings of the mind isn't necessarily rooted in ego, but it can be limiting. So good question, very good question. So it's more of putting the mind aside and being open to possibilities rather than projecting an idea. So if you lack a sense of self-worth from time to time, your projections, if you follow that and you're trying to rationalize in your own head, your projections will be limiting, because you're not seeing yourself for who you truly are. So yeah, so it's still linked with ego, but it can be subtly, it's not obvious that it's ego in a sense. Yeah. It's all entrapments of the mind and restrictions and limitations of the mind. When you're centered, which means you're feeling peaceful, you're feeling sort of neutral, you could be still motivated, you could be excited to some degree, but you sit with and you just project and you feel without fear. You must feel without fear. That is the key. And that's where I think the mind and the emotions can get in the way. And people pressure themselves to come up with a decision in a hurry. The quickest, in my experience, you can come up with a decision is when you become neutral, you center yourself rather than force yourself. You come more likely to, I believe you'll come up with a far greater decision far sooner. So if you can center yourself, feel good about yourself, and then project an idea of what you see, what you feel. And there's a knack to this. So I recommend practicing. You may not be an expert to start with, but as you do it, you become stronger in these areas. I said this to my son, and I didn't want to. He said, what do you feel? I said, it's for you to work out. Like, not what I feel, but you must find it for yourself. And the reason being, and after he made his choice, I even said to him, I said, you know why? Because when my son made his decision, and it was to come back here, and he said, you thought I'd come back, didn't you? I said, yeah, I did. And I said, but I didn't want to tell you. I said, because I didn't want there to be any doubt in your mind that you didn't make the decision 100% for yourself. Yeah. So even if 1 or 2%, it's like, yeah, no, Dad sort of steered me in the right direction. Even if he values me, and even if he does seek my insight at times, and he does at times, I encourage him, because he's very intuitive, to depend on himself. So I said that decision had to be 100% yours, because then you're committed to your decision. Yeah. And that's very important. because that's a sense of empowerment. Where if I think when people are too passionate and too keen to steer someone in a particular direction, and I've been in this position where people have tried to steer me, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, is it my decision? And I've made decisions in the past where I thought that wasn't my decision.
Yeah.
And it's not something I really wanted to do. But, if you respect someone, or if you're at times confrontational, then you make a decision just because it's the easiest one, even though it goes against the grain. I've written about this, and because I've done that in relationships in the past, where I've just gone along with things because I didn't want the confrontation.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, because I feel like I'm, like in my own experience, because you feel like there's going to be a constant battering of waves hitting the shore if you don't make a particular decision. So, and that was my fault because I didn't set up clear. This is a while ago. I didn't set up clear boundaries from the start.
Yeah.
So when you're used to conforming and not trying, you don't want to be challenged in a relationship, even if there's sort of a inner doubt and you're not sitting well in yourself. But before you know it, you're lost way out to sea, so to speak. And it's like how I get here, or step by step. You can't see the land anymore. I truly feel reflect as often as you can. Get a sense. So, and I like to do that way. You can do it anywhere, anytime, really, but you can do it driving your car, sitting on the toilet, like anywhere. And usually places where you don't naturally, where you sort of almost, it's sort of like you're soft dreaming, but not like it's a soft approach sort of thing.
Yeah.
But like I'll sit in my pyramid, or put some incense on, have some nice music. You could have a bath and feel. And I feel you must be prepared to confront and sit in a sense of possible pain or emotions or hurt, or if there's an experience that you haven't enjoyed, or you're in a relationship that I'm not a real relationship counselor either. So, in a relationship or anything like that where you've been hurt, you cannot heal yourself by changing the other person. It's impossible. In my experience, in my true beliefs, it's impossible, because that you haven't worked through that pain, and you expect another person to change so that pain doesn't happen again. So even if someone changes around you, even if a person or a friend of yours does some reflecting and realizes some things, so therefore they release themselves of the pain they may have caused, or the misunderstanding, and they have to change so they won't tread on your toes again, you haven't healed from that experience if you haven't reflected. So reflecting is healing from past experiences, and you heal through understanding, not through limiting, not through avoiding. It's just burying stuff that has to be worked through later. There's all these buried treasures that's not really a treasure chest. Well, it is in the sense that any insight you have is a gem. It's key. We must reflect. It's the only way. It deepens our understanding. It gets our thinking, our understanding beyond ourselves, and we realize in that there are humans around us that are also hurting, but also sometimes fumbling around, that are trying to make sense of things, that's trying to avoid pain, that are feeling insecure. And insecurities makes people do all sorts of things, Yeah. So even being unfaithful is being extremely insecure, detaching from a current situation because you may not be coping. So you may be looking for some other mystery or something else in a different area, but you're taking that wounded soul, so to speak, or that wounded personality being, which is yourself, into the same situation. The pattern will continue. Only you can set yourself free.
Yeah.
A psychologist, counselor cannot set you free. And that might cause controversy. Oh, look what he's saying. He's not a psych. They assist their clients in setting themselves free. They might assist them in medication, so you might feel a sense of freedom. But freedom isn't in a pill, or isn't in drugs, isn't in pot, isn't in alcohol. Like it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with trying to cope, or, if you need medication, take it. But I said this before, and people say, oh, you can't say that. Like, the end goal isn't to be on medication.
Yeah.
If that offends someone, bad luck. Like, that's not the end goal. And it's not like some people might need it to balance their system. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the emotional, the intangible within us, each and every being.
Yeah.
Like that, and there might be imbalances as well. But I feel this, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone would like to prove me wrong. I'm okay with that. But I just truly feel that with most people, when you're falling victim to the mind and the emotions, there's all sorts of character traits, such as maybe a touch of narcissism, a touch of condescending, or you could uplift yourself or could squash others. And there's all sorts of health issues within your mind, multiple things going on, as long as you're believing all the thoughts in your head and the emotions to varying degrees. So there's all sorts of emotional traits and negative traits within your psyche if you can't reflect and can't see through things. And they'll vary depending on your experience. And I'm not saying everyone's the same, but it's when you lash out and you're controlling, it's all these character traits aren't who you are. In my belief, your heart is who you are. All these things we fall victim to are inadequacies or misunderstanding within our psyche. So the inadequacies that you feel within the potential victim space, and that's not who you are. That's just misunderstandings within self. I truly believe that there's some dark people out there. I'm not saying there's not, but within your friends and those around you, like I've had people say to me, "Oh, I come out and accuse you. Oh, you're this, you're this, you're that, you're that." And I'm going, hey. Clearly, and these are sort of ex-friends of mine at times. It's like clearly there's been a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And it's happened to me twice in the last sort of 8 years. So, and the other person was fearing, and of fearing losing things or whatever. Not things, it's not from theft or anything like that. They're fearing other people's opinions that had things to do with, and that they sort of relied on to some degree. So I said, no, it's okay. But and twice they sort of come out, and I said, no, it's and on both times. I said, no, clearly there's been a misunderstanding. And then after hearing what I had to say, I went boom, 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 boom. I went, oh, did see. So, and I even, said, you should know my character. Like it goes against everything you've known, but okay, no worries. You have to choose your own path, and that's okay. It's along the way, you'll be challenged. We all will be. And then there'll be a fork in the road, and you won't make one decision one way or the other. And I think I said, did I mention, I was talking to a mate, and I said, if there was controls on me, I don't think I mentioned it. So if there's controls on me, like one of my mates is vaxxed, and I've got a few that some they feel they have to for work, and some believe in it. That's all okay. But I said to him, if you said to me that you're not welcome in my home, because we were talking about boundaries, actually. I might have mentioned this in the boundary talk. But I said it's about boundaries. So if there were certain conditions that you felt within you that I had to conform with, and I said when that's never been our thing throughout our lives, we've been friends more than 20 years, we don't put those conditions on each other. But if he was afraid or said, you had to be vaccinated, for example, to be in my home, I'd go, yeah, no, I see you. I said to him, and we've been friends for 20 years, and some people might feel, oh, this is wrong, Like, I said, no worries. I'd say, see ya. Have a great life.
Yeah.
I said, I wouldn't, and I even said to him, and he might find that offensive. I said, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. I said, I just wouldn't come over anymore. And then he had a bit of a perplexed look on his face because I said, people might think, oh, is your friendship, is that all it's worth? It's like, well, what about my friendship? What about my values? It's like your values have to be the same as mine, or we can't be friends. It's like, okay, we can't be friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like that, cut and dry. It's like, that's okay. Because people don't have to have the same values as me. As long as they're respectful.
Yeah.
Their values can be something, or their belief system can be different.
Yeah.
No one has to take on my view. But obviously, the more synchronistic we are, the more open we are, the more our core values are the same. Then we're going to be friends. And my friend and I, our core values are the same. He's got a heart of gold.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to change what I think and feel because another person is afraid. And and in saying that, even if they were afraid, from the COVID, for example, it's like, well, that's okay. If I'm not afraid of it at all.
Yeah.
And
right.
maybe you're crazy. Yeah. Apparently, I am.
We both are in that case.
Yeah. But I'm sure that people go, he's off the planet. He's crazy. He's this, he's that. Hey, well, yeah, that's okay. They're not my friends, and they don't understand me. And anyone you don't understand, people tend to label as crazy anyway.
Yeah.
I'm certainly out there. So I can understand, even if they're fearing. It's like, well, that's okay, but I'm not going to change my belief system or do certain things or take certain risks to alleviate your fear.
Yeah.
But so it's like, and I said to my mate, I said, if that was the case, and at some point, he said, oh no, you can come over. Okay, yeah, no worries, I'll come over. I said, my door would always be open. But and I think this is where there's a bit of a rift. These people think you should satisfy my conditions or you don't respect me. Like, no, but you're not respecting me by forcing me to change. So it's a two-way bridge. So reflecting these things, so it all ties in. So reflecting and boundaries and self-worth. I deserve that which everyone deserves, and everyone deserves that which I deserve. And reflecting, back to reflecting, is looking at the balance of things. And if someone's, it's amazing how if another person, thinks everyone should abide by a certain set of rules and they don't. When you reflect, you can go, okay, you can get a sense of where they stand in themselves. And if it's a different set of rules for them to everyone else, then you have to question how much they impact you because they're not seeing you as equal. And they might not even be, this is profound, but they may not even know that they're putting themselves above you. Or they might think, oh, my problems are worse than yours. Or my life's harder than yours. Oh, it's so much tougher. It's this, it's that. And like, how do you know? Like, are you living with me every day? Are you in my head? No?
Yeah.
And most people do have a tougher life than me in their mind, in their head, with the anxieties or frustration or emotional needs or whatever's going on.
Yeah.
So a lot of people's lives, in my opinion, would be tougher than mine, like internally.
Yep.
That's what I feel, but that's their choice. And obviously we do what we do because we're trying to support others to free their mind and give them things to consider and, encourage them to work through their emotions and see the bigger picture within themselves.
Yeah.
And because then they fix the inner them. They can't fix the outer world. You can impact it, but the more internal work you do, the greater you impact the external.
Yep.
It's very profound. So if and I'll say this to anyone listening in, and you know me, Linda, where I'm not the exception to anything that I say. Like you're free to disagree if you feel.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to mention it, but not at all.
So, because I value others like I value me, and in saying that, I'm not going to allow them into my home if they can't see their value. So an indication that they see their value is that they are not the exception to the rules which they impose on others. And the rules aren't a matter of, it might be one like teach you before you enter the house. That's a small one, but it's more of the bigger picture where so-and-so should be doing this, they should be doing that, and all this. These people should be doing all these things, yet I don't have to abide by that. And I can justify it in my head because I've gone through so much. I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm suffering. But realistically, almost everyone's suffering internally. Almost everyone to varying degrees. Yeah. Reflecting, once again, it's the only thing. And we could talk for ages, maybe we'll do another one on this because I'm not sure, but, you can get a sense of it. There's analogies we're talking about giving a sense of how to do it, but we can go probably far more into it, but it'll be a very long chat. So, but the bottom line is if you give someone or look up to someone and they are displaying signs that they are the exception to the rule that they impose on you, that you have to do this and you have to do that, but I don't have to, then you must question and reflect and see the cycle or the pattern of what's going on. Because if they truly see you, the same rules will apply for you as it does for them.
Yeah.
I think that's a good starting point. So there's that, and if there's trauma in your life, and let's say, for example, you had a parent that was angry and didn't treat you that well. And I've said this to other people before, and I've said, in those moments when they were angry, how they treat you, and they just weren't listening, they were controlling, at least they were yelling, or okay, so you certainly didn't feel nurtured. Okay, they go, no, like there's no softness there, nothing. It's okay, yeah, okay. So when you're angry, how are you feeling? Oh, just aggressive, and it's okay. So do you nurture when you're angry? They go, no. I said, okay, so you've got to look at this. So when you're triggered by someone or something, you're angry, you can't facilitate love, you can't facilitate softness, or you can't nurture others. Like, it's very hard because you're caught in your head and your emotions. They said, no. And I said, and this isn't justifying, this is understanding. Like, it's sort of the same thing, but if that's what you're like when you're angry, then you look at your parent, and I'm sure they're not angry at you. They're angry at other things going on in their life. And if they're not coping very well, that they may be angry. So therefore, you can't expect them to offer something in a certain space that you can't offer in that space. And that's a great insight to have. And that might alleviate some pain. So then you think, okay, ultimately they're saying that your parent may not be coping very well. They may have lost their job. They may have had a confrontation. They may have been abused. And if it's going on, if there's a pattern, if it's going on often, then there's something constant in their life that they're not coping with.
Yep.
And unfortunately, having children when you're not coping just exacerbates the whole situation. So it's easy to think, and the natural to think for the child, even if it's got nothing to do with them, that they're part of the problem.
Yeah.
So what do you do about that? Well, reflecting and seek help, counselling, whatever you need to do. But and I truly feel, and I keep saying, to go into your heart, discover your heart, get in touch with your heart, because that's the place that heals all these things over time, and as you unravel yourself. So, but reflecting will go from my parents hated me or they treated me like shit to going, oh, hang on, my parents weren't coping.
Yeah.
They're fighting with each other, or there was something going on. You might even want to talk to your parents. Say, oh, I realized you were angry a lot, and it wasn't me. Or what was the situation like? What was life like for you back then? Were you struggling financially? Was it another relationship? Was it something? And they might go, oh, I don't want to talk about it. That's a sign that there was something they're not ready, that they still haven't even healed from.
Yeah.
So you might think, how does that help me? Well, it gives you a sense of a deeper understanding of yourself and the situation. So that definitely releases the pressure of what you're putting on yourself and what you're blaming yourself from the past. So reflecting is just, it's like an entanglement, and it's unraveling every thread one at a time. And if you unravel a key thread, a number of them fall away. As you release every thread, you become more and more free. If you're bound up, so to speak, and it's all misconceptions, ideas, and it can be, these are traumas, and not to say there's not a thing of physical abuse, and there's all these things as well, which I'm not saying it's nothing, that's something major. But everything that you start with the easy threads. Every thread you can release from yourself, you can get more movement, you get more access to yourself. You can see more, you can feel more. If you're bound, like a spider binds, you're bound enough, then all you see is darkness.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of releasing every thread so you get a sense of more light. And unfortunately, it's not easy. And you'll undo one thread that's binding you, or that you feel bound by, and then there'll be another one that's painful you look into, and there'll be another one's painful. So these threads aren't always easy to look into. I'm well aware of that. I avoided them for a lot of my life as well, while I was trying to discover how to look into them, because it's like, and there's another thing to consider, as we're emotionally bound or hurt or cut or so, it's hard because your mind goes foggy in certain situations. So you must also be patient. Like, you get very adept at unraveling and accessing the mind in foggy situations. The clearer you get, the fog dissipates, so you can see where all the knots are, so to speak. You become clearer like that. And this is what I feel I'm pretty good at. This is obviously why I've written my book, and this is my passion, is unraveling each thread and encouraging others to do that, because back onto a counsellor and a psychiatrist, psychologist, they're there to encourage you and teach you and give you the strength and the know-how, and ultimately to teach you to reflect. This is what I believe the goal should be. So you can unravel it yourself. You can uncover that which binds you.
Yeah.
And I feel like we sometimes give a teacher or someone that's helping us too much credibility. Not we should be thankful, but they're not the ones unraveling us. They offer insight into which direction to go, because you cannot be carried. Just be aware that every insight you work through, whether it's a counselor, psych, or whoever has helped you through it, it's your discovery, because you're the one that's let go, and no one can pry your grip from anything. That's a fact. So don't take anything away from yourself for any insight you've had on any level, no matter who encouraged you, whether it's myself or anyone. It is your discovery. There's nothing for me to own. I just encourage people to take the journey that you and I love so much.
Yeah.
It's well worth it. And if you give someone else credit for your discovery, you're not valuing who you are and your amazing ability. And I feel that's important. And everything that you uncover, discover, unravel within yourself is you getting a true sense of who you are and how you are. This is liberation we're talking about here. And you have to reflect. That is the way forward. And don't underestimate yourself. And don't just sit and think this is who I am. If you want to be more, and I truly believe everyone can be open to that possibility. Every bit of pain, some threads will sort of feel like it give you a bit of a shock. But once you release yourself, you get access to more. That's just how it is. That's my experience. Yeah. So anything you'd like to add to that? It's pretty full on.
Well, I was just thinking, the only thing is if people aren't used to reflecting, then maybe, first of all, it will be uncomfortable if you're not used to doing it. It will be uncomfortable, and that's okay. Just sit with it for a bit, but also take it in chewable chunks. So maybe just start for a couple of minutes and then, eventually go further and further. But don't be scared of it. Because it will be uncomfortable initially.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's interesting because when people are suffering, they tend to want to immerse themselves. Like they might have a bath and they might listen to certain music and fall into the drama and the emotion of it for half hour to an hour. They might do that for days, for weeks, for months, for years. So if you're used to doing that, it depends on what it is. So if you only do a couple of minutes, it may not be enough if you're overwhelmed and it's absolutely lopsided. So in the pain, or, if there's that much pain, I feel talk to someone that can give you an understanding, even if it's a mental one, and give you something like a tool or a consideration, and try and apply that to the pain. And just, you have to keep finding a way. You've got to find a way through ultimately. And I truly feel a great way is to put the mind aside. And initially when you start reflecting, there is pain there and there might be hurt, and you might think, I'm listening to soft or beautiful music and all I feel is pain. I feel this. Well, that's what's there in front of, or that's the wall and the stuff you need to work through that's getting between you and your heart at times.
Yeah.
And the heart, I'm not talking about the vulnerable part, it's the unconditional love, is that one that's a deep understanding, the knowing. That's the heart I'm talking about, not the emotional part that's dependent on others. So I definitely recommend write down, sit, listen to the music that gets you in touch with how you're feeling the most. And sometimes there's so much mud there, you've got to wipe it away. And doing that is by writing down. This is where I'd start. And this is if you've got so much going on that you can't meditate, or you can't sit still. Write down everything you're feeling. And if you light a candle and have some incense, or do something like nurturing or whatever you feel to do, and write down everything. Even if you have to half write a book, get it all out on paper. Because if you don't write it down, you can't see through things. You have to pull apart each strand. And if writing things down will enable you to identify a few strands. There's a few things that tie in together, like the mix of the glue that's holding it all together. You can get a sense of the ingredients. And then from there you can unravel, even just take out one ingredient here and there. But if you're immersed and you can't identify any specific strands, it feels like it's all or nothing. It's all there so much I can't work through it. Then I just feel if you don't write things down, you just can't identify. You're looking at things as a whole. It's probably more more accurate. So you're looking at the whole mix of the wall or the glue or the whatever the barrier, and it looks like a barrier, but as you look closer to it by writing it down, you can distinguish the textures and distinguish what's going on. And this is all analogy, of course, but a few things will stand out that doesn't necessarily make sense, and that's where you start. You go, oh, hang on. So don't just look at how you're feeling. Your feeling reflects the circumstance. And then from that circumstance, you can start, you zoom out from that circumstance or situation to see what was the parameters, what was the setting like, where was it, what was going on, were people drunk, were people angry, what was your situation, how are you feeling, how are they feeling, was there trauma? Are they these people, if you're involved in certain trauma, are they like this with everyone? Okay, and it's like, yeah, they're like that with everyone. Oh, okay, so it's not personal. You're just unfortunately the wrong place, or you might, even if it's your parents, like, okay, that parent's like that with everyone, not just me, So that's just one of many examples. So then, if that's their nature, or I don't like saying that with their nature, but that's their mannerisms, then it's not personal because that's who they are, and they spill that anger and toxins, the toxic sort of attitudes spewed out all over the place. And even if they only spew it in certain directions, family or whatnot, it's because they're not necessarily seeking family's approval. They're seeking approval outside themselves. They're pretending they're lost anyway.
Yeah.
So we can talk for hours in different scenarios, and it's probably enough, I guess. But yeah, I think you're right in the sense that if it's daunting, don't spend too long there.
Yeah.
But try and get something from it. Try and get a piece of the wall and walk away that you can examine in a safe environment. So that's another thing. If you're going through certain traumas, it's almost impossible to work through it in that situation or in that place. You have to try and get to a safe zone, or a place where you feel most safe or protected or nurtured, not so vulnerable. And that's the place where you can try and reflect and work through things, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
This is through my own experience of, when I've gone through traumas and felt controlled or felt a sense of abuse and vulnerable to some degree. So you must be in a safe space to reflect, I believe. And then as you get stronger, you can reflect more often, and in the moment you can reflect more, and you get a deeper sense of understanding in the moment. But it takes a lot to get there.
Yeah.
You've got to really stand strong in yourself for that. And then when you're in that space, things don't tend to happen around you so much because people get a sense that you call them out on it from the start before it even. As soon as they crank up the engine to start sort of running over you, go, no, the engine's on here. No, I'm not going to hang around for that.
Yeah.
So we are so intuitive, and a lot of these patterns are subliminal. People don't realize it's subconscious, and it's just everyone fumbling, stumbling, finding their way because they're not in touch with who they truly are. The bottom line is we can't wait for someone to discover themselves before we do. We have to do it first. And my incentive through spirituality was I want to be the first, not the last.
Yeah.
I'd rather be an example. I'd rather, the old Rocky sort of type theme, like against all odds. If I can break through, then I can encourage others to do the same.
Yeah.
But the key, the number one reason for me breaking through is I wanted to end my suffering. And how I see things and how I feel now, I could not have imagined. So not to say life can't be challenging, but you don't rub every experience over you thinking that's who you are, especially when it doesn't serve you. Yeah. So, and you stop blaming other people. You start owning everything. So therefore you become free. It's the way forward. Anyone listening in, you're far greater than you can possibly imagine. And you have the capability to work through stuff. Just have to develop healthy patterns and consider possibilities, and don't think that what you're feeling is the be all and the end all. There is more to you than so much more to you than you can possibly imagine, is what I truly believe. So the greatest people come from trauma and have had to fight their way to the top, whether it's sportsmen or a lot of deep spiritual people have had to work through it, and it's broken them down enough to discover a sense of themselves. And once they get that sense, there is no stopping. So I encourage all those to take the journey and those that are journeying carry on. Like there is no greater journey. That is for sure. Yeah. One more thing I'd like to offer is that when you reflect more and more, what you'll begin doing, and this will set yourself free, and you won't have to reflect as often, in a sense that before you make a choice, you reflect on where that choice will take you. And this can become almost instantaneous, and you don't have to do it on every decision you make, but I feel that when you reflect on a choice before you make it and the ramifications and whether it sits with you, whether it will sit with you now, whether you're trying to just make a choice that's potentially the easiest one to satisfy someone. If you reflect on making that decision and then see how it sits within you and it doesn't sit with you, it's not worth it. So this is all about following your integrity, staying in touch with yourself, your heart. The integrity is your heart. So all this practice on reflecting is key. You can do it before a decision, and that way you can alleviate, instead of making the safest choice that will eat into you like cancer potentially, and slowly, impact you over a period. You best make a decision that sits with you as best you can, because even though other people may not be happy in a particular decision, instead of trying to appease them, you must sit with yourself. And that's when I say follow your heart, be true to yourself. And I'd rather make a decision that other people don't like, providing it's with integrity. And I'll do this 10 times out of 10. I'll make a decision that I feel completely happy with, or I feel it just sits with me. It's the right thing. It's within the ethics. When my decision sits with full integrity of myself and what I feel truly is right in the core of my being, if it doesn't sit with someone, then that's unfortunate. If it does sit with them, I might give a sense if they're open to why I made the decision. If they're open enough, they'll understand. Because some people might misunderstand certain decisions, and I think some people that are in pain and suffering, they'll misunderstand pretty much every decision because they think it's all about them, and it's not. End of the day, it comes down to what sits with us, the integrity within us, and that's the foundation upon which all our decisions should be made. Honor and integrity before they make a decision. That can save a lot of hurt, a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Within them. It may not save pain within others, but it would definitely make their life easier within themselves, because nothing eats into you like sitting out of integrity with yourself. That's the great way to age, and dis-ease stems from that, in my opinion. So,
I agree.
So thanks for listening in. Feel free to comment or ask questions, or any topic you'd like us to give our unprofessional opinion on. By all means, message us. And stay tuned, and we look forward to the next one. Bye for now.